In our Data Masterclass podcast, data leaders share their unique stories. In this episode, we talk to Jack Lampka, the head of data science at MSD, a global pharmaceutical company. We talked about how to market AI products to internal customers. Let's welcome your host, Alex Borek.
Hello, my data friends. It's the Christmas edition of the Data Masterclass podcast. And who could be a better Christmas person to talk to as Jack Lampka, who is basically somebody who has spent the last 27 years in tech and pharma and mostly focusing in the last at least decade, as far as I know, on data analytics and AI. So Jack Lampka is the head of data science at MSD. And MSD is basically a large global conglomerate in pharma that is also known in the US under the name of Merck, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct, Jack? And you really worked across the value chain, the data analytics value chain in different kind of roles. And, both on the change management side and building AI products and analytics and data. And now the last years you've been really focusing also on the topic of AI, which we will explore today. And today's topic is about the 5 Ps of marketing in AI. So I'm really curious to explore that. Welcome to the Data Masterclass.
Thanks,
podcast,
Alex,
Jack.
for inviting me. I'm glad I'm part of the special Christmas edition. So I'm looking forward to our discussion.
And this is the first season that slowly comes to an end. It's podcast number 15 this year, and we started only off this year. So it was a very long year. And we had actually also people from across the value chain. And the last few podcasts were focused more on the data side. We had a few really great podcasts on analytics, on self-service analytics, how to scale that to several thousand people. Also this year, we had a really good, strong episode on data product management, which I really enjoyed. And also, I think we had a bunch of conversations on data strategy and how to approach it and how to get people off the sidelines, and in particular senior leaders. And that was something that we explored in the last episode, actually, with Tom Redman, which I enjoyed a lot. And so, and I think the great thing is that you've done most of these things. So maybe we can start off with giving a bit of background. What were the things you were doing that led you to where you are today, and what is the role that you have today?
All right. So 27 years, yes, that's all dealing with data or analyzing data, first as in finance, in marketing later, and corporate strategy, but all of that dealing with data, analyzing data, extracting insight out of data. And you said 20 plus years in tech, the past 7 years in pharma. And this involved functions like just a data analyst, or at some point in time, I was kind of setting up the data governance, data taxonomy for a small team. And the last, I would say, 8-9 years were focusing on data science, AI, and most of those years, actually past 11 years now, building and leading data analytics teams, data scientists. And what I basically enjoyed all the time is there's so much potential in data and so much potential to use that to drive business decisions. And this is where my focus has been kind of the intersection between that insight and the decision makers. And we get into that in a second, but that's basically my biggest learning was how do you convince business colleagues, the decision makers, to use your insights? Whether it's some simple thing as here's a dashboard with our sales data, or some more complex things like marketing mix modeling or next best action. So that's the biggest challenge I have faced is not developing the shiniest, greatest models, but using any insight to drive business decisions and convincing the business users how valuable that is.
Yes, I fully agree that this is a major challenge. That like when you can invest a lot of money in things that are is not adopted, and no matter if it's fancy or less fancy, sometimes the easiest things can provide more value simply because they are better used, and the most sophisticated things maybe are not trusted and not used because they are intransparent. So
Yeah,
I
the
fully get that.
transparency is the key. So what I learned is transparency. So 15 years ago, when I was working at HP, we developed a marketing mix model to recommend shifting marketing investments for campaigns. And we thought this is the greatest insight we bring to the business. And the marketing director said, "What is that? I mean, how should I use it? And can you explain to me what that is? Because we actually made the mistake basically coming with a black box and not explaining how it works. And this isn't HP, many engineering people with engineering background. So they are data literate, but they actually want to know how this box works. So you need to open it. You need to be transparent. That was my key learning from that interaction 15 years ago. And this is the challenge many of us are facing, particularly coming from developing the shiniest solution and not thinking about how business users or any user will use it.
Right. And maybe, maybe that is a very good intersection to the topic of AI leadership and data leadership, because what you describe is also the transition that many undergo in their career, where it's a lot about building things and operating things. And when you become a data leader and AI leader, it's much more on convincing other people, isn't it? Is that not, is that the
Yeah,
transition that you're describing?
convincing. Actually, I would not say you have to become a data leader to move into that role. I think everybody who develops whatever data product that is, whether it's a simple dashboard or whether it's more like a complex recommender system, those people in those roles that are like product owner roles or project manager should think about how the users will use it, how the decision makers will interact with that. And but then as a leader, that responsibility increases because you have your teams, your developers who develop a solution, but then you need, as a leader, you need to ensure that there is this skill set on your team that will help to basically translate this insight into this decision making, or help the decision makers understand what that insight is, how valuable that insight is, and make it as transparent as possible so it will be used.
Or what are the top things, you believe data leadership is about?
It starts with, from my point of view, from a kind of a strategic direction. Where is the company you're part of, or where is the business you're supporting needs to be or wants to be long term, and how data can help. So actually it starts first with any, not even data, but with business direction, business goals. So the first thing that leader needs to do is understand that, instead of coming with, here's the technology and we're going to implement that and then that's going to be the best solution. No, you start with the business needs, and then you identify how can data support the business getting there where it wants to go. And then you start identifying what data products potentially are needed to support those business decisions. And once you start developing the data products, or framing those, then comes technology. Which technology is needed to develop these data products? So first the business decision, then data, and then technology. Many times people start with technology and looking for a solution, looking for a problem that the solution can deliver, instead of thinking first about what the problem is, and then developing a solution.
Yes. I might have seen that.
Right?
So what do you think makes data science and AI projects fail?
So kind of alluded to that already. It's kind of the belief that technology, or the belief that you develop something and then the business users will use it right away. So it's basically the people aspect is the biggest limiting factor in success of AI solutions, data and AI solutions. So because you end up, if you don't do it right, you end up with a great solution that as a developer, as a data scientist, as the data leader, it is delivering value. But if you don't convince your business stakeholders that actually it's going to deliver value and how it will improve their decision making, if you are not able to convince them, they will never use it. And you need to keep in mind, many of the solutions, usually the more advanced solutions, for example, next best action, require that the user, in this case, let's say a sales rep, changes his or her daily workflow. So that requires changes on the user part. And in order to really ensure that the users will use the new solution, you need to think about how to convince them that they should change a little bit even the workflow so they can get better outcome and they can get help from, let's say, next best action recommender system. They can get help in their daily decision making.
And do you think this becomes a bit easier with generative AI? Because it seems like it's so intuitive for people. I mean, maybe we connect generative AI too much with natural language interaction, so maybe that is more human. But it seems like everyone started simply using it, no matter which kind of job role, for productivity.
I think, all this hype and with ChatGPT and then all the other LM solutions helps getting many stakeholders, including business stakeholders, to engage and realize how AI can help. And actually, even if at a conservative industry like pharma, there is, which surprised me actually a lot, there is so much attention to Gen AI that even the executives are involved, but that helps to generate the understanding what AI is or where AI can help. So actually, I'm using this interest to kind of point out, hey, look, we have this other AI. It's not Gen AI, but it's basically data-driven decision making that we've been developing, using for a while, and that the Gen AI part creates more interest in all of our other AI solutions. So that helps and helps to open, I guess, the mindset a little bit among the users, what's possible with AI.
Yeah, and I guess everyone sort of reconfigured themselves, and after they understood what you can do with AI, I think it really was an eye opener for many. In particular, the wider audiences, that go beyond the data professions and IT professions. I remember when we were at the Data Masterclass Europe 2023 in June, in Berlin, we had this lovely panel on AI on the rooftop after, sort of in the evening with Alex Tam and with Professor Stefan Ultes, who is a Gen AI professor, university professor. And I asked, what has changed? What has really changed? Because Stefan, the professor said, actually, it's the same technology that we have been working with, for at least 3-4 years. Transformers are nothing new. And Alex said, what changes that now, my grandma understands and my parents and everyone else finally understands what we do, what I do every day. And they even ask me like, what kind of models do I build and stuff like that, which of course never, before it was a complete black box to them, what he does. Data science was always for people outside of the discipline, I think, kind of a black magic discipline. And now everyone starts talking about it. Now everyone is an expert. You read in the newspapers every day about different kind of models.
That's basically, it's helps us to kind of explain what AI is, even though some people still have a different misconception, but at least there is kind of a conversation topic that can build on what experienced people have with Gen AI.
Wonderful. So I guess one of the topics that was a theme in Data Masterclass was really the question of projects versus products. And I know you're also passionate about this topic. So when should you move from projects to products, and why do you think it's important in AI?
We should move right away, and here's why. So if you think about the characteristics of a project, you need to have a clearly defined business need. You need to define who that is for, to the customers. Then you need to think about what features they need in that to be developed, that solution. And then you define resources and time to develop that. The characteristics of a product actually start with the same 5 characteristics as a project, but there are 2 more that make a distinction, at least for me, between product and project. One is roadmap. When you start developing a solution, you have limited time and potentially limited resources, but along the way, with any data project, you identify potentially other insights that you could extract out of that data. You identify potential other solutions that may be useful, and so that leads to something, additional features you may not be able to address in the current time frame. So that leads to a roadmap of a future developments for that product. So that's the roadmap part. And the second difference is product marketing. So typically with projects, you develop something and then you throw it over the fence and hope that it sticks, hope that it will be used.
You just need to throw it wide enough.
You need to throw it to the right people who potentially already know the value, but most of the time people won't know the value right away. And this is where product marketing comes in. This is how you use the framework of product marketing to convince users to use your product, and potentially buyers, those people who provide resources, to give you more resources to develop even better product, or move from MVP to full product. So that product marketing is the second differentiator for me between products and projects.
Okay. So that's interesting, because I think very often, we talk about product lifecycle management. That is a major differentiator. Maybe that has to do with the roadmap.
So by the way,
quite
with
a bit.
Roadmap, I have in mind also the product, how long the product will be alive. So basically from cradle to grave,
right?
And define how will the product evolve over time, and at some point in time potentially will be decommissions if that's the need. But that, for me, the roadmap addresses is also the product life cycle.
Yes. And I mean, sometimes you do smaller updates and upgrades, and sometimes you need to revamp the whole product. So maybe the technology completely changes, but it's still the same product, just with a new version.
The thing with technology comes in. Technology is secondary. Technology should be something considered as a support to develop the product. And if the technology gets better, you change the technology, but the product is still the same. So like taking a car analogy, you may change the engine that moves the car from A to B, but still the value that the customer gets is moving from A to B.
Yes, and I mean, maybe, I don't know if you have any examples from the line of work, from pharmaceutical, any of your previous jobs, I mean, I imagine even something like a next best action algorithm, it's providing you the next best action, but you improve it over time. And sometimes it's a gradual improvement, and sometimes it's a different algorithm or different data that you
So
start using.
we actually went through different phases of our next best action solution, where initially we made the mistake to not involve the users. So, and this is where kind of product marketing comes in, because one of the components is defining the product along with the customers. But taking next best action as an example, you have actually two customer groups. So you have first the buyers. So this would be the executive or the sponsors providing resources. And then you have the users.
Okay. So the executives that provide you the funding to do the project
so
or invest into the product.
within the company, internal resources, whether it's people, whether it's money. So these are the buyers for whom you need to define the value proposition. But then the second group of customers are the users. So in our case, sales reps. So we provide a recommender system that every week makes suggestions for which customer should be visited or contacted, with which content, through which channel. And these recommendations are going to the sales reps. The sales reps are the users of next best action. So that second customer group, the users, they need to be convinced for the system to be used. And then in order to accomplish that, you need to define features that are relevant for the users. Your executives, your sponsors may say, oh, we want this and that, but just say thank you and then move on to the users, because you need to talk with the users. You need to understand how they operate today. What's the workflow today? And how a next best action system can help them and can be embedded in that workflow, instead of asking them to completely revamp how they operate. So the users as a second customer group are critical for success of a next best action tool.
Do you have any favorite methods how to get that insights from the users? Is it simply talking to them, or do you engage them in another clever way?
Well, talking obviously, yes, and you can do one-on-one coffee chat with sales rep, or workshops to get the insights. But the biggest benefit we got, actually, we had a sales rep doing an assignment in my data science team while we are developing next best action. So that person was basically part of the product development team, and she not only brought the insights on how sales reps operate, but then she took that and was one of our champions when we launched the product to convince other sales reps of the benefits. So bring somebody, the user in your development team, was a very useful approach we took. And I would recommend, whenever you have that chance, to bring the user into your team, where you get much better insights than just having like a workshop, 1 hour session, half a day. Having the user engage with you every day almost, it's going to help a lot to develop a solution that will be used by the users.
That's very powerful. It's actually a really good hack if you can do that. And maybe it's not always possible to do a full assignment, but just having somebody to invite to maybe do a little bit closer work with your team could be already like a huge time.
That person
benefit.
Was 20% of her time spent helping the development team. So basically on average a day per week, but spread over every day. So that was very, very helpful for us.
I made a very similar experience. So I think one of my best experiences was when we also were developing AI solutions, AI products that should scale across different markets, where you developed it in one or two bigger markets and then looked how to scale it in different markets. And it was about an AI product that would really automate, a not insignificant part of a process that involved human labor, of course. And one of the things that was really a game changer is that we actually hired somebody from that team, from the central team that is using that business, that is running that business process as our product manager for this product. And that was really a very, very lucky, in hindsight, and very smart move. I would not say it was, I think we felt it. We thought this can work out, but actually this was a game changer for us. And I think that is really something that, if you can do that, maybe is a better way than getting generalist product managers, because you can always train people on product management if they bring some basic talent for that, some mindset
bring
and talent
that expertise, that domain expertise, and in particular. Bringing a potential user of the product is gonna help a lot to develop a product that actually fits the user needs.
Yes. But let's explore your idea of product marketing in AI. So what do you think is behind that? I mean, what are the different pieces of product marketing for AI products?
First, maybe just in general, the concept. This concept of 5 P's of product marketing has been around since the 50s. So this is many companies in the consumer goods space, they started developing or using this framework of the 5 P's of product marketing. So it's a product, pricing, place, promotion, and people. And it's about identifying all the different components of a successful product marketing. If you think of a smartphone, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody at some point in time has went through that decision process. Which smartphone will I get? The product features. Which product features do I want? They thought about pricing, how much I'm willing to pay. They thought about where will I get it? Electronic store, online, and then they were exposed, whether they wanted or not, to promotion, and all the vendors promoting their product.
Yes.
And people component comes in more, maybe for smartphones today it's not relevant, but when the first smartphones arrived, when Apple introduced the iPhone, it was a new category. People still had to deal with understanding how to use it. So that's the people experience. It's that 5th component, the people component. But basically, product, pricing, place, promotion, and people is what you as a consumer kind of go through, not obviously intentionally, but you basically identify all these different components before you decide on buying a product. And that's what companies do. They basically break down all the marketing activities into these 5 components, and they are very successful. Consumer goods company in particular are very successful in selling and marketing their products. So why should that be different for data products or AI products? Why should we assume that we develop something and throw it over the fence and it's going to stick? So this is where I started implementing this 5 P's of product marketing framework for our data science products to help ensure that they actually used.
So I think this is a very interesting way of looking at AI products. And I have not heard that before from anyone else, to be honest. Maybe somebody else. Of course, 5 P's is very popular in marketing. It's like what you learn in your first class at university about marketing. But applying that to AI products, I have not heard that much on that one. So and in particular, when you're an internal team providing internal products to internal customers. So let's go one by one. So let's look at the first P of the 5 P's, which is the product itself. So what is your activity? Maybe you can bring an example, that you have done or somebody in your team has done to really tackle the first P?
So the first P is product, and it starts with what is the business need, and who are the customers. So let me use this next best action, because this is, I think for me, it's a good example of how these 5 P's can be implemented. So you define the business need. The business need is a recommender system. Recommend which customers to engage with this week, through which channels and with which content.
And that is used, so the intended user
yes.
is sales
Yeah,
reps,
so
is that right?
pharma is a B2B
Right.
kind of environment. So we provide the recommendations to sales reps.
Yes.
So these are the users. But as I mentioned before, we have the buyers. So somebody needs to provide resources, either people, actually usually both people and potentially some additional investments and some IT resources to make this happen. So you need to make a distinction between the users and the buyers. And for the buyers, obviously, need to develop the value proposition. So this is basically it's part of this. The first P, develop the value proposition of your product. But when it comes to the features, it's not the buyers, it's not the executive team, it's not the marketing director or sales manager. It's the actual user, so sales reps. And this is where you identify the features of the product, because that's part of this first P. The business need, who your customers are, and then how do you address that business needs for those customers. And then the other component comes in the product life cycle. How will this product evolve over time? So next best action, we started simple,
right.
Pick 2 channels, pick very basic recommendations, and over time expanded that with adding content recommendations, adding really more AI components, and growing this over time, because you should start small, potentially also as a smaller user group, and then build over time. So that first P is about the product definition, and again, who your customers are, what's their value proposition, and what are the product features.
And I find it very interesting, to really and useful to divide, the 2 groups, the people who are the decision makers and the people who are the users. And for the decision makers, just to repeat that, you need the value propositions, and then for the users, you need the features. I think that is a very good way of structuring it. And then your features evolve over time, so become better over time. Very good. So let's go into the second P.
So
what is the second P?
Is about pricing. Typically in a non-data space, pricing is about identifying the right price for the product that also communicates some value, and then identifying price that is competitive enough, and obviously a price that is high enough so the company makes profit. In a data space or AI, when it comes to AI products, the price is more about the resources. So resources to develop it, but resources to use it. So developing the resource, developing a next best action, basically data scientists, data engineers, ML engineers, or some visualization specialists. So they will develop the product. But instead of just throwing off the fence, you want to make sure it's going to be used. So here you need to think about resources also, change management coaches, potentially executive sponsors that will help market the product to their employees. So resources, in addition to resources, time is also part of this pricing, because it takes time to develop,
right.
but also it takes time
right.
to reach some acceptable usage levels. Because you can, and this is again coming back to this from project to products, you want to ensure that the product is being used. And you cannot expect that a complex system like next best action will be used right away by everybody and all the recommendations will be implemented. It's going to take some time. So this time factor here is, we have defined that not the time to launch the product, but a time to reach some acceptable usage levels.
And when you really look at the second P of pricing, I mean, basically, when you think about your two customer groups, your decision makers and your users, for the decision makers, it's the investment they need to make, mostly the pricing, and maybe some opportunity cost, what they cannot do when they do this. For the users, it's often also a price to use it, because maybe there's a risk with regards to their job. Maybe there's a risk with regards to the trust into the number or into the solution, where you might fail in what you do because you believe the wrong numbers, for example. So that is also a price.
And actually, there is another component there. And then using, again, next best action as an example, particular for sales reps who have been around for a long time. They know some of their customers very well. And while maybe having some other customers they have not engaged much in the past. So for them, for the sales reps,
right,
it's the price is also changing how they operate, because they have, particularly those who have been around in the job 20, 30 years, they have established a routine, how they approach customers, how they engage with them. And now this tool comes up and then tells them, here's a recommendation to meet that physician this week. And that potentially, actually not potentially, that always requires changes on how they operate. So the price involves here changes by the sales reps on how they engage with customers and which insight they use to engage with the customers.
Yeah. And the easier you make it for them and the more trustworthy, the lower the price for them is. So that's the thing that you can really adjust. Wonderful. So we have two P's now. So what is the third P?
Piece is place.
So we had product and price so far.
And this is probably the simplest one, because it involves knowing where you meet your customer. So in a different setting, more kind of consumer space, it's more about defining whether it's an online, you meet a customer online or in the store or through some other means. When it comes to data products, internally developed data products, it's basically where do you meet or find your both customer groups, the buyers, so the executives, and the users.
Right.
So it's basically defining here for the buyers, it's you may engage with them through one-on-one coffee talks. You may find a time on the calendars, go to the staff meetings or some decision boards to get the funding. While for the users, it's there are many ways to find and discuss the solution with your sales reps. So also one-on-ones, coffee talks, but also what we started doing are kind of informal office hours or data hours. So anybody can come and ask questions about data, but later specific to our next best action, we have weekly sessions where anybody can stop by. So place is more about where you find your customers.
Very good. And I guess, when you have your AI product shipped, I guess it's also about the convenience where you ship it, isn't it? Because if you have yet another dashboard to open, it's quite different to integrating it into their workflow. Maybe that's...
And in particular, if it's... depending on how you deliver that dashboard, if it requires a different place for the user to go to that dashboard, that will add additional level of resistance to use that.
Yes.
Or we found, for example, for place, we learned very early that our sales reps use our CRM system on a regular basis. So instead of providing recommendations in a separate dashboard, they would need to go to. We actually integrated the recommendations in the CRM system. So there is a user interface. There is one additional icon for next best action. They click on that, and it's the same platform they use for everything else on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's great. Great. So we have product price promotion. No, place. Product price place. So we come to promotion as the next piece. Is that right?
And that and the following one are the most difficult ones. Because if you think from project perspective, we as, let's say, data science teams, or as data leaders, or individual data analysts know how to develop product. If we get clear specification, we define that, we know the resources it takes, and then we know roughly where we're going to place that, because in dashboard, let's say, if the dashboard has been always available through a browser, probably you would place it in a browser. So the first three pieces are relatively straightforward. Promotion, now it adds this mindset that needs to be changed on the developer side, on the data leader side. The mindset of how do you convince users to use it, and how do you convince buyers to pay for it. And this is identifying also through which means are the best to convince both. So convincing buyers to buy it, you do some sales pitches to executives. You may present in an executive board meeting what the value proposition of that product is. And then maybe you create some promotion videos, kind of a fancy, shiny video, short introduction to your system. For users, kind of starts with similar approaches, although now you need to identify, or you need to be more inventive of how to approach those users. And ideally, you would know how they tick. You would know how they operate, and you can use that to find a way to convince them to use it. At the end, both groups of customers, the buyers and the users, they need a data story. This is where data storytelling comes in, because you can try with facts, with numbers, with figures, many times to really get to some acceptance levels. You need to create an emotional story, create a story about a user, how the user benefited from using this tool, or create a story how a physician or customer, in our case, was interested in our learning about our product because I, as a sales rep, got these recommendations to use it. So the story is how you promote the product, and this is and because that's not typical for data analysts, data scientists, or data leader. That's probably the biggest challenge to change that mindset to a product mindset.
And I think the one thing that is really easier, and maybe that has to do with place as well, is that you can get your sales reps, for example, or your users of your AI easily into a call, either into a room or even or virtually into a room, and simply, prepare your promotion and do a 1-hour sales presentation towards them, where you can have other users talking how great it is and doing all these things, but you get like 1 hour airtime of them quite easily compared to consumers, because for consumers, you pay for every minute, for every 30 seconds, you pay millions. But here you can, if you do it right, I think this is a huge opportunity, because you can get really people into the room, or use an all hands, a 10-minute slots, 15-minute slot, and an all hands to promote.
You need to keep in mind, it's not one-time thing. It's even if it's an hour or half a
Yes.
day,
Yes.
you can provide
Mm.
some information. You can convince some of them to use it right away, but it is a process. So it's a process because not
Yes.
everybody will jump in right away, and then you need to identify what communication methods also work for people. Some people prefer watching a 15-minute video. Some want to have like a lunch and learn session. Some of them want to read, maybe more technical oriented. They want to read documentation. So you have different users, and
Yes.
you need to
Yes.
experiment
True.
basically on how to reach those users.
I know. I'm just thinking. I mean, this has also to do now with the fifth P of the five
Yeah.
P's of marketing, which is the people aspect, doesn't it? Because I wanted to say, what about change management? Because it sounds like you're touching already that difficult topic, because that's probably the hardest bit around AI products.
Exactly. So the people aspect is about the general mindset, the general understanding what people have about data and AI. So AI is going to replace me. There is lots of fear people have, or sometimes with this AI system, you're going to just track what I do every day. So people have fears
Mm.
because they don't many times don't understand how the system works, or and usually if you don't understand something you end up being afraid of it. So this is where data literacy programs come in. So not necessarily specifically to a
Right.
tool, but more building the mindset, building the sharing what data is available, and improving the ability to read and data, engage with data, analyze data. So this is the data literacy programs, which usually run years, are those type of programs that help you to improve the data mindset and AI mindset among users. And this cannot be kind of a top down kind of a executive training or learning uh, session. This needs to be bottom up evangelism, because different users engage or interact or learn differently. And at the end, whatever that you do
Right.
in this type of data literacy program or with promoting your product, you need to convince the users what's in it for me. So they never ask the question explicitly, but everybody thinks like your choice of your smartphone. What's in it for me if I buy this device? You don't ask that question explicitly, but that's basically the process you go through. Same for data or AI solutions. What's in it for me that I use this recommender system? I've been doing well the past 20 years. What is that thing you're trying to push on me? So you need to convince them what's in it for me in order for them to use that.
And here a lot of psychology kicks in. And, one of the things that I learned is that most people, a vast majority of people, are much more motivated by fear than by opportunities. And that makes it very difficult, I think, for AI, because I think the fear part is you can be quite high, and maybe the opportunity side is not as much valued as the fear. So that, and I think probably it gets interesting where people start to fear being missing out, where other
Exactly.
colleagues
Yes,
start
that's
using it
it.
and get an
That's why
advantage.
you find your champions. You start with few people who really are the
Yes.
users, and will start telling stories. How I was able to talk with this physician because the recommender system recommended that particular physician, even recommended a topic I should talk about, and all of a sudden I got in a great conversation. So if they hear that, other sales reps hear that, they will start the fear of missing out starts kicking in. Oh, that person got actually better engagement with the physician, maybe I should try it too.
Great. So we see that the 5 Ps, so really, starting with the product itself, with the pricing, with the place, with the promotion, and also the people aspect are all very, very relevant when you create data and in particular AI products. And so maybe a good question would be, what would you start off with when you want to explore the 5 Ps of marketing for AI products? What would you recommend to other data and AI leaders, to get started?
Well, start with the business problem and start identifying who your customers are. And then keep in mind that your customers will many times not embrace your great solution right away. But if you start thinking the business problem is how which your customers are and how the product can help on a daily decision, or whether it's some product is for daily use, it could be some more strategic choices, but whatever the business decision is, you need to understand how this AI product can help with that. And then everything should flow naturally out of that. Keep it in mind, this question everybody will ask, and they will tell you, what's in it for me? What's in it for me from the decision maker as well? Because why should I have here 5 people developing this for 3 months? They could spend the time somewhere else. But so you need to explain to that decision maker as well, what's in it for me, investing those resources. And then in particular for the users, how it's going to help their daily job.
Wonderful. So let's look a bit into the next years of pharma. Where do you think will this whole AI craziness take us in pharmaceutical in particular? And I know you're working more on the marketing side and go-to-market kind of side of things. So whatever focus you want to take, what would be your prediction for the next few years?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I go too deep into pharma, because at the end, lots of these solutions that like next best action is applicable to other industries as well. And yes, pharma has been more conservative using those solutions, but thanks to Gen AI, it's now more open, more decision makers are open to that. And this is where it helps, as we said before, it helps to promote the use of AI in general, not only the chat GPTs, but using AI in general. And here there are many opportunities that will on kind of in the customer engagement side, because content generation, it's kind of obvious thing. And pharma has more restrictions in terms of what content can be used. Potentially other industries have that too, but instead of creating content from scratch, you already have some content. And if you do, again, using AI to do customer profiling, you realize you have different customer segments. You can take one content and have Gen AI to tweak that content to each of the segments. Let's say you have a segment that is more scientifically oriented and a segment that is more emotionally oriented, let's say. So fact-oriented emotionally. You can take the same content material, whether it's an email template or whether it's a brochure or whether even it's the landing page on your website. You can customize that for every customer segment using Gen AI. So that's very simple use case that even works for highly regulated markets, because it's not about developing content from scratch by using existing content. So there are many other use cases we are evaluating right now using Gen AI, and also some of Gen AI use cases helping data scientists to develop data solutions, for example. But in general, I think pharma will, like many other companies, are embracing this AI now even more. And actually that thanks to the hype that started November last year with ChatGPT.
Very good. Maybe last question. Where does data management come into play here?
So depending how you define data management, if you're talking about ensuring you have clearly defined your data sets, you need ensuring that you have data quality processes in place. If you're having that in mind, it's a starting point. Garbage in, garbage out. And this is still a challenge I'm facing, and I'm talking with others from other industries, that need to have a clearly described data with high quality, with clearly defined data taxonomy, with a data catalog. That need is still not sufficiently understood by the decision makers who provide the resources to develop that, because they never see that what's happening under the hood. They see many times data scientists dealing with that not well-defined data. They find solution on how to bring that data together, how to cleanse that data, but actually there should not be those cleansing that data. You should have a clear data management in place, and that's probably is one of the biggest investments that should be made, because that's the groundwork, it's the base for everything, including any type of AI solution.
Great. Thank you so much, Jack, for being with us here on the show. It was a lovely conversation, really a great final episode of this year about the 5 Ps of marketing in AI for AI products, which is really, I think, a very creative spin to I have to say, that can be very helpful as a framework for many data and AI leaders. So thank you so much, Jack.
Well, thank you for having me here. And anybody listening to the podcast, you can check out my website, jacklampka.com, where I have different topics I talk about. And if you're interested learning more about product or AI marketing or any topics like data strategy, data literacy, check it out, jacklampka.com.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you
for being with us.
Boric Data Masterclass, where great data journeys begin.